Have you ever felt a pressure so heavy that you couldn't explain it, yet everyone around you acted like it shouldn't exist at all? A pressure that doesn't come from your choices, but from the expectations that quietly wrap themselves around your life the moment you get married. It sits on your shoulders even when you smile. It follows you into rooms where no one says a word. It grows louder in your own mind when the world grows quiet. And if you're honest with yourself, you feel it more than you ever admit. You didn't choose this weight, it chose you. Not because of who you are, but because people think they already know who you're supposed to be. They look at you like they're waiting for something. They ask harmless questions that cut deeper than they realize. They make small comments that stay with you for days, and each time you swallow your feelings, pretending it doesn't hurt. You act strong because that's what everyone expects from you. But inside, you're tired, deeply tired. No one talks about this part. No one talks about what it feels like to be a married woman without children, in a world that treats motherhood like a deadline, a world where your worth is judged by a role you haven't stepped into yet, or maybe don't want to, or maybe can't. People don't consider your story, they don't ask about your reasons, they only see what's missing, not the battles you fight when no one is looking. And that's where the loneliness begins. Not the kind where you're physically alone, but the kind that grows when you're surrounded by people who don't see you. The kind that stays in your chest long after a conversation ends. The kind that makes you question your value, even though you know deep down that your life holds more meaning than they give you credit for. You start wondering if you're falling behind, if life is passing you by, if something is wrong with you. And none of these thoughts come from you, they were planted by the world around you. You've tried to ignore it. You've told yourself it doesn't matter. You've convinced yourself to take it lightly. But the truth is, pressure doesn't disappear just because you pretend it's not there. It grows in silence. It grows each time you're forced to explain yourself. It grows when you see others move forward in ways you haven't. It grows when someone gives you that look, the one that says more than their words ever could. A look that makes you feel judged, even if they didn't mean to be unkind. But here's something you might not have heard in a long time. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not failing at life. There is nothing wrong with your journey. The only thing wrong is the belief that your life should look like someone else's. The idea that a woman is incomplete until she becomes a mother. That belief has shaped too many lives, but it doesn't have to shape yours. What you're feeling is real. The pressure is real. The weight is real. And none of it makes you weak. In fact, the strongest people are the ones who carry stories no one sees. The ones who wake up each day and face a world that expects something from them that they haven't given. The ones who learn to keep moving even when others assume they know what's best for them. You deserve peace. You deserve understanding. You deserve space to breathe without feeling like you owe anyone an explanation. And if no one has told you this before, hear it now. Your life has value exactly as it is. You are allowed to define your own timeline. You are allowed to protect your heart. You are allowed to build a life that feels right to you, not one that fits a mold. Stay with this message. Stay with the truth that you are not alone in this feeling. Stay with the possibility that you can rise above the pressure that has followed you for so long. Because you can, and you will. You've carried this weight for so long that part of you believes it's normal. But it's not. You weren't meant to live with a constant ache in your chest. You weren't meant to spend your days trying to convince yourself that everything is fine when your heart knows it isn't. And the most painful part is how quietly this pressure works. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It slips into your thoughts when you least expect it. It turns simple moments into reminders of what people think you lack. It makes you feel like you're being watched even when no one is around. That's how deep this burden goes. You've tried to be strong. You've tried to stay graceful. You've tried to be the version of yourself that keeps everyone else comfortable. But every time you do that, a small piece of you fades, not because you're weak, but because pretending takes energy you shouldn't have to spend. And the truth is, you're exhausted, not from life itself, but from carrying a story that no one bothers to understand. A story filled with battles you were never prepared for but had to face anyway. There are days you wake up and feel fine. Then something small triggers a storm inside you. A careless comment, a question that sounds innocent but carries judgment underneath. A moment when someone looks at you like your life is incomplete, and even if you stay quiet, something in your heart tightens. You try to shrug it off, but it sits with you. It follows you home. It follows you into the night when the world is asleep and your mind is wide awake. That's when the doubt grows louder. That's when you start questioning your worth all over again. But look at yourself for a moment, not through their eyes, through your own. Look at the strength it takes to show up in a world that constantly measures you against something you have no control over. Look at the resilience it takes to stay soft when you've been hurt by expectations you never agreed to. Look at the courage it takes to keep living your life when everyone else believes they know what you should do with it. If you could step outside yourself and see what you've survived, you'd realize how powerful you already are. You deserve more than silent suffering. You deserve more than polite smiles that hide your pain. You deserve a life that feels like it belongs to you again. And that starts with reclaiming your voice. The voice you quieted to keep the peace. The voice you buried to avoid judgment. The voice you softened to make others feel comfortable. That voice is still there. It's waiting for you to choose yourself again. It's time to step out of the shadows created by other people's expectations, not because you owe anyone an explanation, but because you owe yourself freedom. Freedom from timelines that were never yours. Freedom from standards that were forced on you. Freedom from the idea that your value depends on something outside your control. You are more than your circumstances. You are more than the questions people ask. You are more than the path society expects you to follow. You don't have to apologize for living a different story. You don't have to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone. You don't have to carry guilt for things you cannot change. What you do have to do is remember who you are beneath the pressure. A person with dreams, depth, humanity, and worth. A person who has survived more than most people will ever understand. A person who deserves compassion, not judgment. Hold on to the truth that your journey is still unfolding. Hold on to the belief that your life has meaning regardless of what anyone else thinks. Hold on to the quiet strength that has carried you through every moment you thought would break you. And let this be the moment you stop letting the world define you. Let this be the moment you breathe again. Let this be the moment you rise with a new understanding of yourself, a deeper confidence, and a heart that knows it is enough. There comes a moment when the weight you've been carrying starts to feel different. Not lighter, but clearer. You begin to see how much of your pain was shaped by voices that were never yours. You start noticing how much of your identity was built around staying silent, staying agreeable, staying small. And even though the pressure is still there, something inside you shifts. You're no longer looking at your life from the outside. You're standing in it. You're feeling every memory, every expectation, every wound. And for the first time in a long time, you're ready to question why you've allowed these hidden rules to define you. You've spent years waiting for the world to understand you, but the world rarely understands what it doesn't feel. So you stopped expressing yourself. You stopped sharing your inner battles. You stopped letting people in. And the cost of that quiet has been heavy. It has drained your energy. It has dimmed your spirit. It has made you doubt your worth in ways that no one around you even realizes. But the fact that you're still standing, still trying, still hoping, speaks volumes about the strength you carry inside you every day. There is a version of you that the world has never seen. A version that is honest. A version that is raw. A version that refuses to be shaped by pressure. That version is not weak. It's hidden beneath layers of expectations that never belonged to you, hidden behind a smile that covers more pain than anyone could imagine, hidden inside a heart that has learned to break quietly. But even quiet hearts have limits. Even silent pain has a breaking point. You've reached that place where staying the same hurts more than the idea of change. Your soul is tired of apologizing for things you can't control. It's tired of carrying shame that was never yours. It's tired of waiting for the perfect moment to feel worthy. Deep down, you know that moment won't come. Worthiness isn't something you wait for, it's something you claim. And you claim it by deciding that your story matters, even when it looks different from everyone else's. Think about everything you've survived. The whispers, The glances, the pressure to explain yourself, the nights you cried quietly because you didn't want anyone to see your disappointment, the days you pretended not to care when comments cut straight into your soul. You endured all of it without falling apart in front of people who wouldn't understand. That alone should tell you how powerful you are. Most people break under far less. But you kept going, even when it felt like your heart was cracking under the weight of unspoken expectations. You're not here to fit into a mold. You're here to live a life that feels true to who you are. And truth doesn't grow in places where you're constantly comparing yourself to others. Truth grows when you decide to stop measuring your life by timelines you never agreed to. Truth grows when you stop letting society dictate what should define you. Truth grows when you stop carrying guilt for decisions, circumstances, or realities that are not failures, but simply parts of your story. Look at the path ahead of you. It's not empty, it's not delayed, it's not lacking, it's open, it's yours. It's shaped by every lesson, every heartbreak, every moment of courage you've gathered along the way. And whether you realize it or not, you're becoming someone stronger than the person who first felt this pressure. You're becoming someone who can stand tall without needing approval, someone who can walk forward without seeking permission, someone who can breathe without feeling judged. This is the moment you step into that strength, not by shouting, not by proving anything, but by choosing yourself with a quiet certainty that no one can shake. You are enough as you are. You have always been enough. And the day you finally believe that is the day the pressure loses its power over you. There comes a point where you stop looking for signs from the world and start listening to the quiet truth inside you. The truth that whispers that your life is not falling apart, it's unfolding, not on their timeline but on yours. And the more you let that truth rise, the more you feel something shift inside you. You start to see how much of your identity was shaped by pressure you never agreed to carry. You begin to recognize how often you traded your peace for the comfort of others. You notice how many times you swallowed your voice just to avoid another judgment, another question, another reminder that people see you through their own expectations instead of your reality. But the more you awaken to yourself, the harder it becomes to go back to pretending. You can't keep shrinking yourself to fit a story that never belonged to you. You can't keep blaming yourself for things you didn't cause. You can't keep living in the shadow of what society thinks a married woman should be. There is a fire inside you that refuses to stay dim. It grows stronger every time you confront the thoughts that once controlled you. It grows every time you remind yourself that your journey still has worth, even if it doesn't look like theirs. The pressure you carry has been treated like a flaw, but it's actually proof of how deeply you care. You care about your future. You care about your relationships. You care about what your life means. That kind of heart is not something to hide, it's something to honor. But honoring yourself means facing the truth you've been avoiding. You cannot keep living to satisfy expectations that suffocate your spirit. You cannot keep bending to avoid disappointing people who have no idea what your days feel like. You cannot keep letting fear decide your worth. Every time you judge yourself, you lose a piece of your freedom. Every time you compare your life to someone else's, you forget your own strength. Every time you let society decide what your happiness should look like, you disconnect from your own soul. And that disconnection is the real pain, the feeling that you're living a life that doesn't reflect who you truly are. But the moment you acknowledge that pain, you open the door to change. And change doesn't need permission. It needs honesty. It needs courage. It needs the willingness to choose peace over pressure. You've survived more than most people know. You've walked through silent battles that would break others. You've held yourself together on days when your heart felt like it was splitting open. You've shown up again and again, even when life made you feel unseen. That strength is not small, it's not fragile, it's not accidental. It's earned, and it means something. It means you are capable of rising in ways you haven't even imagined yet. There is a future where you wake up without this heaviness, a future where you don't feel judged for your path, a future where your worth isn't tied to timelines, labels, or expectations. A future where you finally breathe the way you've wanted to for years. That future becomes real the moment you stop letting the world define you. The moment you stop apologizing for your story. The moment you understand that your value doesn't begin with motherhood, and it doesn't end without it, you get to decide who you are. You get to decide what matters to you. You get to decide what kind of life you build, and the pressure that has chased you for so long loses its power the moment you choose yourself with intention, not guilt. You are not behind. You are not incomplete. You are not failing. You are evolving. You are growing. You are stepping into a version of yourself that knows her worth without needing anyone to confirm it. This is your turning point, the moment where everything inside you rises to meet the truth you've pushed aside for too long. You are enough. You always were, and the day you finally let yourself believe that is the day you break free. You don't rise by accident. You rise the moment you decide you're done letting the world write your story for you. And right now, you're standing at that edge where your old doubts collide with a new kind of strength. A strength that doesn't shout. A strength that doesn't seek approval. A strength that grows quietly in the places where you once felt broken. You can feel it building inside you, slowly replacing the fear that used to control your thoughts. You can feel it challenging every assumption you've carried about yourself, and the more it grows, the more you realize how much of your life has been spent living under pressure that never belonged to you in the first place. There is a moment when a woman finally sees the truth behind her pain, not the surface-level explanations people assume, but the deeper layer beneath it. The part where she realizes she wasn't hurting because of her circumstances alone. She was hurting because she kept trying to meet standards she never created. And the weight of those standards turned into a quiet burden she carried everywhere she went, every room, every conversation, every celebration she tried to enjoy while feeling like she didn't quite belong. That kind of pressure doesn't just touch your life, it reshapes it. But something inside you is refusing to accept that anymore. You're not willing to let old wounds dictate your future. You're not willing to let the world tell you who you should be. You're not willing to continue living in a story that treats your worth as a question mark. You are done being at war with yourself. And that decision, silent as it may be, is the beginning of your transformation. You've spent so much time waiting for the right moment to reclaim your power. The moment when circumstances align, the moment when people change, the moment when life becomes gentler. But real freedom doesn't wait for perfect timing. Real freedom begins when you stop letting fear decide your direction. And that shift is happening right now, inside you, in ways you can feel but can't always explain. It's the feeling that you can't keep living the way you used to. It's the awareness that your peace matters more than anyone's opinions. It's the courage that whispers that you deserve a life that feels like your own. The truth is, your journey is not defined by what's missing. It's defined by what's rising. Your patience, your resilience, your ability to keep loving, even after being misunderstood. Your ability to keep going, even when life tested you in ways you never expected. These are not small things. These are the marks of someone who refuses to be defeated. Someone who refuses to let pain harden her heart. Someone who refuses to let pressure steal her identity. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Not your strength, not your happiness, not your worth. What you need is to honor the path you're on, to trust that it is shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more grounded than you have ever been. The world may not see the battles you fight in silence, but that doesn't make them any less real. And it doesn't make you any less powerful. There is a version of you you're stepping into, one who no longer seeks permission to exist fully, one who no longer apologizes for her journey, one who no longer shrinks to protect other people's comfort. She speaks with a clarity that cannot be ignored. She stands with a confidence that cannot be shaken. She walks with a purpose that comes from knowing her value is not up for debate. Let that version of you rise. Let her take the space she deserves. Let her breathe without fear, walk without guilt, and live without apology. You have spent years carrying the expectations of others. Now it's time to carry yourself. Because the moment you choose your own peace over their approval is the moment everything changes. And that moment is now. There comes a moment when you realize that the pressure you've carried for so long was never just about one expectation. It was about the constant feeling that you were being watched, measured, evaluated. It's the way people look at you a little longer than they should. The way their questions sound gentle on the surface, but cut deep beneath it. The way their silence becomes heavier than their words. You've lived in a world where every conversation feels like a test you didn't sign up for, and even when you stay calm on the outside, something inside you tightens every time someone links your worth to something you don't have. That quiet tightening is the part of you that's tired of being misunderstood, tired of carrying a weight you never agreed to carry. But that same tightness is also where your strength begins, because it shows you're awake now. You're aware of what's happening around you and what it's doing to your spirit. Awareness is powerful. It forces you to confront the truth you once avoided. It shows you that you've spent too much of your life trying to be what others needed instead of who you truly are. And that realization hits deeper than any comment or question. It shakes you. It urges you to rise. It reminds you that you deserve to live without fear of judgment. Without fear of disappointing people who don't live your life, don't feel your pain, and don't understand your journey. Every time someone reduces your identity to one expectation, something inside you fights back, not loudly but with a steady resistance that grows stronger every day. It's the resistance that whispers, "You're more than this pressure. You're more than this timeline. You're more than this label society keeps trying to place on your chest." And even though you've spent years believing that you were behind, something inside you is finally questioning that belief. Something inside you is beginning to ask why you should feel inferior for living a life that simply unfolded differently. That question is not weakness, it's awakening. You've held so much in for so long, the hurt, the frustration, the nights you lay awake replaying conversations you wish you didn't have, the days you pretended everything was fine when your heart felt anything but fine, the moments you avoided gatherings because you didn't want to deal with the looks, the moments you forced a smile so no one would see how tired you were of feeling like a disappointment. These are not small wounds. These are the kinds of wounds that shape a person. And yet here you are, still standing, still moving forward, still fighting to protect the little piece you have left. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to keep going. Sometimes it's the choice to hold your dignity even when people test your limits. Sometimes it's the courage to stay gentle in a world that keeps trying to harden you. That gentleness is not weakness. It's proof that your heart hasn't surrendered to bitterness. And that alone makes you powerful beyond measure. But you're beginning to understand that staying gentle doesn't mean staying silent. You're starting to reclaim the parts of yourself that you abandoned to make others comfortable. You're starting to see that your worth cannot be negotiated. It cannot be assigned by society. It cannot be defined by circumstances. Your worth is rooted in who you are, not in what someone expects you to be. And the moment you accept that truth, something inside you unlocks. A softness mixed with strength, a calm mixed with clarity, a fire that doesn't burn wildly but burns steadily, refusing to go out. This is the part of your journey where you no longer shrink to fit the spaces that made you feel small, where you no longer carry guilt for things you cannot control, where you no longer apologize for the life you're living. Instead, you stand in it with intention, with dignity, with a quiet power that says you will no longer let the world decide what your story should look like. You are becoming the version of yourself you were always meant to be, the version that walks without fear, the version that speaks without trembling, the version that knows she is enough. And when you truly believe that, no pressure can break you. Every moment you've survived has shaped you into someone who can rise again, even if you don't feel it right now. There's a quiet strength in you that never learned how to quit, even on the days when you wanted to disappear. That strength is still alive, waiting for you to trust it again. The world may not have applauded your effort or recognized your struggle, but it didn't break you. You're still here, carrying battles no one saw, victories no one celebrated. And that alone proves you're capable of more than you think. Somewhere inside you is a version of yourself you haven't met yet, someone stronger, clearer, more focused, more fearless. That version is built through decisions you make today, not someday. Life changes when you stop waiting for permission and start moving with intention. You don't need the perfect plan, the perfect timing, or the perfect circumstances. You need the courage to take one step, then another. The path reveals itself as you move, not as you stand still. Every delay steals a little more of your confidence. Every small action builds it back. There's a trap many fall into, the belief that life will magically shift on its own. But nothing changes until you change. The moment you decide you're done shrinking is the moment everything around you starts to adjust. People treat you differently. Opportunities feel closer. Your energy pulls in things that match your direction. You don't rise by accident. You rise because you refuse to stay where you are. Let that refusal grow inside you until it becomes a force you can't ignore. Deep down, you know what needs to be released. You know which habits are draining you, which fears are holding you back, which doubts keep looping in your mind. You know who you become when you let your past decide your future. You don't need to keep repeating that version. You can outgrow people, outgrow stories, outgrow the limits you once thought were permanent. Nothing in your history has the authority to dictate your destiny. The moment you stop letting it, everything begins to shift. There's a fire that builds when you finally decide to stop living small. You start moving differently. You stop explaining yourself. You stop apologizing for wanting more. You stop carrying guilt for choosing your peace. You stop shrinking so others can feel comfortable. And in that shift, your life opens. You begin to see possibilities that felt invisible before. You begin to understand that your life isn't supposed to be a cycle of survival. It's supposed to be a journey of becoming. You've spent too long waiting for a sign, and here it is. Your life won't change until you step into the discomfort that leads to growth. Growth is not gentle. It demands honesty. It demands discipline. It demands sacrifice. But it gives you something far more valuable than comfort. It gives you a life that reflects who you truly are. A life you don't have to escape from. A life where your effort means something. A life where you wake up with a sense of direction instead of dread. There's a reason you felt restless, a reason you felt pulled toward something more. Your spirit recognizes a life you haven't lived yet. That restlessness isn't a problem, it's a message. It's telling you that you're meant for a chapter you haven't written. You're not stuck. You're being prepared. And preparation always comes with pressure. Pressure shapes you. Pressure strengthens you. Pressure reveals what you're made of. Move with courage even if your voice shakes. Start even if your hands tremble. Change doesn't wait for confidence. Confidence grows from action. Every brave moment rewires your mind, reminding you that you're capable of doing hard things. You don't have to transform your entire life today. You just need to do the next honest thing, the next brave thing, the next thing that aligns with the future you want. Your life is waiting for you to show up. Not halfway, not someday, fully, today. You've carried so much on your shoulders that you sometimes forget you're allowed to rise. You're allowed to want more for yourself. You're allowed to outgrow the version of you that once settled for less. Life has tested you in ways no one fully understands. Yet you kept moving, even when your heart was tired. That alone proves you're stronger than the doubts creeping into your mind. Every challenge you've faced has been shaping something inside you, preparing you for a moment where everything finally clicks. That moment starts the second you stop letting fear dictate your next move. There's a point in every person's life where they feel the pull to level up, to step into a life they've only imagined. You feel that pull because something inside you knows you were meant for more. You weren't created to live on repeat. You weren't created to survive the same day over and over. You were created to evolve. And evolution doesn't happen when things are easy. It happens when life corners you and forces you to decide whether you'll stay stuck or step forward. Right now, you're standing at that decision. You can sense it. You can feel it in your chest. This is your turning point, even if it doesn't look dramatic from the outside. Most people wait for the perfect moment to change their lives. They wait for the right timing, the right clarity, the right motivation, but that moment never comes. Change isn't something you wait for. It's something you create. Every breakthrough you've ever admired started with someone who was scared but moved anyway. Someone who stopped letting excuses run their life. Someone who realized their dreams were worth the discomfort. And you're no different. You're one decision away from shifting your entire direction. You've spent too long giving your energy to things that drain you. You've been fighting battles that don't grow you, carrying people who don't support you, replaying memories that hurt you, and somewhere in that cycle you forgot that you're allowed to choose yourself. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. When you stop pouring into what breaks you and start pouring into what builds you, your life changes fast. You begin to protect your peace. You begin to value your time. You begin to respect your own potential. And once that happens, the world has no choice but to adjust. The reason you feel uncomfortable lately is because you've outgrown the space you're standing in. You've outgrown the excuses. You've outgrown the fears. You've outgrown the version of yourself that accepted half-hearted effort. Your spirit wants to expand. It wants to experience more. It wants to live fully instead of quietly enduring. That discomfort isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something powerful is trying to emerge. You're being pushed into your next chapter, even if the transition feels messy. Every step you take now matters. Every mindset shift, every moment of discipline, every choice to stay focused when you could slip back into old patterns. These small decisions are building a future you'll be proud to claim. You may not see the progress yet, but it's happening. Growth is slow until it explodes, and when it does, people will call you lucky, not knowing how much silence you suffered to get there, not knowing how many times you had to rebuild yourself, not knowing how many nights you kept going when quitting would have been easier. What you're walking toward is bigger than what you're leaving behind. The life you want is waiting for the version of you who refuses to settle. The version who shows up even when it's hard. The version who believes there's something on the other side worth fighting for. And there is. There always has been. You just got tired along the way. But you're not done. You're not defeated. You're not too late. You are right on time for a comeback that no one sees coming but you. Keep moving. Keep pushing. Keep rising. Your future is calling, and it's louder than your fear.